There's so many things I love about Daggerheart that I could make an entire video about it, but this is not that video. This video is about where I think Daggerheart failed players and GMs. Before we get into that, introductions. Hey folks, my name is VJ Harris. My pronouns are they, them, he, him, and something funny. I'm a full-time tabletop role-playing designer and professional game master. You might recognize my name from things such as DnD Productions, Arcadia, Flea Mortals, or An Elf and Cat Little Baby, volumes 1 through 4. Okay, introduction done, let's get back to it. Now here's the thing, this failure is nested in success. In case you weren't aware, over the years there's been a push, at least in the D&D community, to have more disability options within the game in order to allow players to play disabled characters. There have been a lot of amazing folks who have been working towards that. There's Mark Thompson, aka Mustang Art, who made the first D&D combat wheelchair, and I believe he also created it for Pathfinder and Starfinder at one point. There's Limitless Heroes by Wormworks. Hell, at one point I was putting together a project called the Crimson Gauntlet's Guide to Disabilities and Neurodivergency. And of course, there's been individuals who at their own private tables have implemented things for players around this topic. Daggerheart and the folks at Darrington Press have continued this tradition, movement, whatever you want to call it, by adding sections that not only talk about how to play disability with purpose and respect, but also adding a combat wheelchair to the game. Pages 83 to 86 of the PDF, or 82 to 85 in the book, provide guidance for playing disabled characters in Daggerheart. On page 83, this section discusses not only ways to reflavor spells so that characters with disabilities such as blindness, deafness, and muteness are still able to cast them, but also how the GM can utilize other senses or aids to help with it. There's also a part that discusses modifying stuff due to people having issues with bugs, etc. Page 84 goes more in depth into playing disabled characters with a focus on discussing a disabled identity, accessibility aids, and how to tell disabled stories in a way that is respectful and genuine. Page 85 focuses on playing blind or visually impaired characters and deaf characters through a variety of questions to help said characters feel more fleshed out. Page 86 has a number of illustrations and notes below them to show different types of aids, such as magical items, animals, and even descriptions from companions. Pages 123 to 124, 122 to 123 in the book break down the combat wheelchair and provide mechanics for the different frame models and how that affects gameplay, specifically combat. These 7 pages are a success. This is good, but it falls short in a very specific way. On Fridays at 5 p.m. CST, I run an arcane what-if game over on Start Playing called Embers of the Undercity. I promise this is not an ad or a break, I have a point to make. In that game, there are 3 characters, Ambrose, Tick, and Wisp. All 3 of the characters deal with chronic pain from different conditions. Ambrose has some internal stuff going on, Tick has a prosthetic leg, and Wisp is suffering from a traumatic brain injury. On top of that, Tick deals with anxiety. Another character, Gully, goes nonverbal in specific stressful situations. All of these players wanted to represent these various disabilities and neurodivergencies through mechanical means in the game, which meant that I had to come up with 5 different tables with different effects to represent what each character needed. Now, I've been DMing games since 2015 and I've been designing stuff since 2020. I'm also super lucky to have friends who have made chronic pain systems, etc. in games before that I could fall back on as a framework. It was of course still work, and I did a bunch of research, including talking to the players, because pretty much all of them have the disabilities and neurodivergencies they wanted to play. But every GM is not me, and they shouldn't have to be. Where I think Daggerheart failed players and GMs is by not giving examples and more guidance on how to make mechanics for disabilities and neurodivergencies that isn't the combat wheelchair. Now, while I haven't been in charge of a Kickstarter, nor have I been the person that deals with page count and printing, etc., I have been a part of projects that do that and have talked to leads that have to deal with that and have just used resources floating around that explains this stuff. So don't get me wrong, I know that page count is something that needs to be taken into effect or consideration, but this is Critical Role and Darrington Press. They are up there with publishers such as Cobalt Press, Paizo, DnD Productions, etc. when it comes to funds. I feel confident saying that they could have afforded to add about 5 to 10 more pages max to give this kind of guidance that I know is needed for various tables. What you might have noticed through the course of the video, I have put failed in quotation marks, mainly because failed feels like a really harsh word for what I'm talking about here, but there was no other word I could think of for this. The final thing I'm going to say is this is not a failure unique to Darrington Press. I've been hard-pressed to find resources that talk about how to write mechanics for various disabilities outside of prosthetics and wheelchairs. Daggerheart is following in the footsteps of other published works, both the good and the lacking. Thanks for being here, folks. See you in the next one.